The reality of the $10,000 electric vehicle is far more than a simple price tag. It represents a fundamental rewiring of how humans move. To understand the depth of this shift, we have to look past the metal and glass and dive into the philosophical difference in how these cars are designed. In the West, the automotive industry spent a century perfecting the idea of the car as a status symbol, an extension of the living room, or a high-performance machine. But the Chinese industrial machine looked at the problem through the lens of a smartphone manufacturer. They realized that for the vast majority of people, a car is a utility, a tool that needs to be efficient, digital, and above all, affordable. This mindset change allowed them to strip away the unnecessary weight of traditional automotive legacy. While legacy brands were spending billions trying to figure out how to make an electric car feel like a V8, Chinese engineers were focusing on how to integrate software and hardware into a seamless, low-cost package. They didn't just innovate on the battery, they innovated on the factory floor itself. In these new mega-factories, the level of automation is staggering. We are talking about facilities where the human hand barely touches the vehicle until the final quality checks. This reduces the margin of error and slashes the overhead costs that have plagued Western manufacturers for decades. When you look at the interior of a $10,000 EV, you see the result of this digital-first thinking. Instead of hundreds of individual physical buttons and complex wiring harnesses that cost a fortune to assemble, they use a single centralized screen and a unified software architecture. This is a massive cost-saving measure that most people don't even realize is happening. By moving the controls into the software, they eliminate miles of copper wiring and dozens of expensive mechanical switches. This makes the car lighter, cheaper to build, and easier to update over time. It is the same reason a smartphone can do more than a 1990 supercomputer for a fraction of the price. However, the ripple effects of this disruption go far beyond the showroom floor. Think about the global labor market. In Detroit, Stuttgart, and Toyota City, the cost of labor is tied to decades of social contracts and high standards of living. China has managed to combine relatively lower labor costs with a level of robotic precision that is difficult to replicate. This creates a competitive moat that is nearly impossible to cross using traditional methods. If a company in the United States wants to compete with a $10,000 car, they can't just work harder, they have to completely reinvent their entire corporate structure, from how they source rubber for the tires to how they manage their pension funds. We also have to consider the strategic control of the raw materials that sit at the very beginning of the supply chain. While the world was focused on the finished product, China was quietly securing the rights to the lithium in South America and the cobalt in Africa. They didn't just want to be the ones selling the car, they wanted to be the ones selling the ingredients for the car. This means that even when a Western company manages to build a great EV, they often still have to buy the processed minerals or the battery cells from their Chinese competitors. It is a win-win scenario for the Chinese economy. Even if you don't buy their car, you are likely buying their technology hidden inside your own brand's vehicle. Then there is the issue of urban planning. These small, affordable EVs are perfectly suited for the megacities of the future. In places like Jakarta, Mumbai, or Sao Paulo, the traditional American SUV is a liability, not an asset. It is too big for the streets and too expensive for the local infrastructure. The $10,000 EV, however, fits perfectly into the narrow lanes and high-density living of the emerging middle class. This is where the real growth is happening. While the Western market is reaching a point of saturation, billions of people in developing nations are just now looking for their first set of wheels. By capturing this market early, China is setting the standard for what a car should be for the next century. The environmental impact of this democratization cannot be overstated either. For years, the criticism of EVs was that they were only for the wealthy elite who wanted to feel good about their carbon footprint. But if you can make an electric car that is cheaper to buy and maintain than a used petrol car, the transition to green energy happens automatically through market forces rather than just government mandates. This is a massive shift in the climate change narrative. It moves the conversation from sacrifice and high costs to efficiency and savings. When the average family realizes they can save thousands of dollars a year on fuel and maintenance by switching to a budget EV, the internal combustion engine will fade away not because it was banned, but because it became obsolete. We are also seeing a change in the way these cars are sold. Traditional dealerships are a massive added cost to the final price of a vehicle. Chinese manufacturers are increasingly looking at direct-to-consumer models or simplified retail experiences that cut out the middleman. This allows them to keep those thin margins sustainable. They aren't looking to make $10,000 of profit on a single luxury car. They're looking to make a few $100s of profit on 10 million cars. It's a volume game that requires a totally different financial nerves. As we look toward the next decade, the pressure on established giants will only intensify. They are no longer just competing with another car company. They're competing with a geopolitical strategy that has been decades in the making. The $10,000 EV is the tip of the spear. Behind it lies a massive network of satellite technology, 5G connectivity, and autonomous driving data that these cars are collecting every second they're on the road. The car is becoming a rolling data center, and the company that controls the most cars on the road will eventually control the most valuable data on how the world moves. The ultimate question for the consumer is one of value versus loyalty. Will people stay loyal to the brands their parents drove if a new, high-tech, and incredibly cheap alternative is staring them in the face? History tells us that price and convenience usually win. Whether it was the Model T in the 1920s or the Japanese imports in the 1970s, the market always moves toward the disruptor who can provide more for less. The era of the expensive, exclusive EV is ending, and the era of the mass-market, budget-friendly EV is just beginning. The giants of the past have a choice. They can adapt their entire philosophy of manufacturing, or they can watch from the sidelines as the world moves on without them. The $10,000 car isn't just a vehicle, it's a global wake-up call that the future belongs to those who can make it accessible to everyone.